The chamber was quiet, but the tension hummed beneath the surface. Captain Lena Reyes stood tall, her gaze locked on the figure before her. General Karlach, towering and armored in shimmering black, smirked down at her. His cold, reptilian eyes glittered with amusement as he addressed the assembled Galactic Council. "One human," Karlach mocked, his deep voice rumbling through the room. "Is this all Earth has to offer?" Lena's expression remained stoic, but inside, a fire burned. She was used to their underestimation. They had all heard of humanity's supposed insignificance, a species from a backwater planet with primitive technology. Yet here she stood, representing Earth, not out of choice but because no one else could. "Careful, General," Lena replied, her voice sharp and controlled. "Underestimating humans has always been a costly mistake." Her words sliced through the General's arrogance, causing a ripple of unease among the council members. The room, vast and alien in design, with towering columns of holographic data and floating platforms, felt claustrophobic under the weight of the coming confrontation. Above, alien faces watched from their seats of power, eager to see if this human was more than just bravado. The challenge had been clear: one warrior from Earth against an entire squad of the galaxy's elite soldiers in the arena. It was a trial by combat, one last opportunity for humanity to prove its worth. If Lena failed, Earth would be forced into submission, its independence stripped, and its people scattered across the stars as slaves. As she prepared, Lena's thoughts flickered to the training she'd endured. She had fought in every battle imaginable, from the Martian conflicts to the orbital wars above Jupiter. None of that compared to this, the weight of a species resting on her shoulders. There was no retreat, no fallback. If she failed, humanity failed. The council leader, an ethereal being known as Rose, drifted forward, its translucent body shimmering like water. "The terms are set. Victory in the arena will decide Earth's fate. Are both sides prepared?" Karlach growled in response, his confidence unshaken. Lena, however, gave a single nod. Every nerve in her body was taut, every instinct on high alert. She could feel the alien stares, the weight of their expectations, but she refused to let the pressure crush her. As the council finalized the challenge, Lena exchanged a glance with her AI companion, Vox, embedded in her suit. "Ready, Captain?" Vox asked, its voice cool and analytical. "Always," she replied. The platform beneath Lena began to lower, descending into the vast arena below. The sound of alien machinery whirred around her, and the harsh, dry air of the arena hit her face as she stepped onto the ground. The crowd roared, thousands of alien voices filled the massive coliseum, their shrieks and calls mixing with the clanging of distant machinery. The arena was vast, stretching out into a landscape of jagged rocks and metallic debris. Far above, hovering drones captured every moment, every breath, and transmitted it to the audience. Her enemies were waiting. She could see the outline of the alien squad, their bulky forms shrouded in the distance, gleaming weapons in hand. Lena took a deep breath, the weight of her armor comforting but light. She adjusted her grip on her plasma rifle, feeling the familiar hum of energy surging through it. This wasn't just a battle, it was a statement. Her first step forward felt heavy, but as the adrenaline kicked in, so did her focus. "Let's show them what humanity's capable of," she muttered under her breath, eyes narrowing on her opponents. The first clash was imminent, and failure was not an option. The arena was an expanse of jagged terrain, littered with metallic wreckage from past battles. Dust hung thick in the air, mingling with the heat that shimmered off the broken ground. Lena Reyes crouched behind a slab of twisted metal, her breathing steady, eyes scanning the horizon. Across from her, the alien squad moved like shadows, a team of 6 elite soldiers from different war-torn worlds, each bred for combat. "Multiple targets inbound, Captain. Shall I identify their tactical patterns?" Vox's voice, cool and composed, pulsed in her ear. "Negative," Lena whispered. "I already know how they think." The squad was spreading out, fanning into a semicircle to flush her out of hiding. It was a textbook maneuver, something she'd drilled into every soldier under her command. But these weren't humans, they moved with a strange fluidity, as if their limbs weren't restricted by the same rules of gravity. Lena could sense their confidence, their certainty that she was prey. In her mind, she heard the dismissive laughter of General Carlock again. One human, he'd sneered, believing her alone to be hopelessly outmatched. They all thought humans were weak, fragile bodies, no innate powers, primitive technology compared to the galaxies. That assumption was their first mistake. She shifted her weight, every movement precise, quiet. Vox, give me a heat scan of the area. Instantly, a holographic overlay appeared on her visor, marking the locations of her enemies in glowing orange. They were closing in. Too close. Lena's pulse quickened, but her hands remained steady. She wasn't one to panic, not after what she'd been through. Captain, their leader is flanking you to the west, Vox observed. Heavy armor, energy shield. Lena smirked. Good. He'll be first. Her fingers tightened on her plasma rifle, and she slid into position. The enemy soldier, a towering creature covered in bioarmor, stomped forward, the ground vibrating beneath its feet. It towered over Lena, a juggernaut of muscle and technology, a living tank. It raised its energy shield as if to crush her in one blow. But Lena was faster. She darted forward, low and quick, firing a precise burst of plasma into the creature's exposed side. The shot connected with a sizzle, and the alien howled, staggering back. Before it could recover, she was on it, dropping to a knee and firing again, this time a sustained beam straight through its shield. The force knocked it off balance, and with one final shot, the beast collapsed. One down, Lena murmured, rising from her crouch. The other 5 would be closing in now. She didn't have much time to celebrate. Impressive, came a voice, deep and guttural. Lena froze. Carlock's voice echoed from the arena's walls, amplified for all to hear. You fight well for a fragile species, human. Lena gritted her teeth, refusing to be distracted by the taunt. She could sense the council watching her, waiting for her to falter. They wanted to see humanity humiliated, wanted to believe that Earth had no place among the stars. But she wasn't here to prove them wrong. She was here to survive. The ground shook again, and 2 more enemies came into view, sleek, fast-moving creatures with cybernetic enhancements, their weapons glowing with an otherworldly light. Lena pressed her back against a slab of wreckage, heart racing. They were faster than the first, and more heavily armed. She had no time to reload her rifle. Vox, she whispered, activate the Aegis shield. A pulse of energy rippled from her suit as a translucent barrier enveloped her, just in time to absorb the blast from one of the alien's pulse cannons. The impact rattled her bones, but she held firm, shifting position as she fired a series of cover shots, forcing her attackers to dodge and retreat. The shield flickered and died after absorbing the attack, but it had given her the moment she needed. Lena lunged from cover, dropping low to avoid a volley of plasma fire, then pulled a small disc from her belt and threw it toward the nearest attacker. The EMP detonated in a flash of blue light, disabling the enemy's cybernetic implants. It crumpled to the ground, convulsing as its systems short-circuited. 2 down. The second cybernetic alien was already on her, claws outstretched. It moved with terrifying speed, too fast for Lena to dodge completely. Pain flared in her side as one of its claws raked across her armor, tearing through the outer layer. She gasped, but didn't slow. With a swift twist, she jammed the barrel of her rifle under its chin and fired. The body fell limp, and Lena staggered back, her breathing heavy. Blood trickled from the wound in her side, but she barely registered the pain. She couldn't afford to. Not yet. 3 down, Vox confirmed, his voice tinged with approval. 3 more to go. Lena wiped the sweat from her brow and narrowed her eyes. She wasn't done. Not even close. Lena's vision blurred for a moment, as the world swayed beneath her. Her body was screaming for rest, but there was no time for weakness. Not here. Not in this unforgiving arena where survival was the only goal. A sharp pain lanced through her side from the wound she'd sustained. Blood seeped slowly, a dull reminder of the constant threat surrounding her. Gritting her teeth, Lena pulled herself upright, forcing her breathing to steady. She'd fought through worse, far worse, but exhaustion was beginning to cloud her instincts. "Captain, you're losing blood at a critical rate," Box stated in a voice far too calm for the situation. "You need medical intervention." "I know," Lena hissed, clutching her side. "But that'll have to wait." Her eyes darted across the battlefield. 3 opponents remained, and they were regrouping, their pace slow but deliberate. Alien eyes gleamed with cold precision, their movements synchronized as they spread out, forming a triangle around her position. These weren't mindless brutes. They were soldiers, highly trained, calculating, exactly the kind of enemy she'd spent her career facing. She had no illusions about her odds. If she miscalculated once, even for a second, she wouldn't live long enough to feel regret. "Vox, tactical assessment," she muttered, keeping her rifle raised. "The remaining hostiles are approaching in a flanking maneuver." Vox responded, his tone clinical. "Their leader is the one with enhanced reflexes. He's the primary threat." Lena's grip tightened on her weapon. She wasn't facing a single battle anymore, this was war. The aliens were adapting to her strategies, calculating their next move with chilling precision. She needed to turn the tide before they closed in completely. "I need a distraction," she murmured, scanning her dwindling arsenal. Her fingers brushed over a flash grenade strapped to her belt. It wasn't much, but it would buy her a few precious seconds. Lena exhaled sharply and then, in one swift motion, yanked the grenade from her belt, activated it, and hurled it toward the nearest alien. The bright flare exploded, a blinding light engulfing the immediate area. A chorus of disoriented roars echoed as the aliens recoiled. That was her moment. With the speed and precision of a trained predator, Lena surged forward, rifle aimed at the nearest target. She didn't hesitate. 3 clean shots to the chest, and the alien dropped, its bioarmor sizzling where the plasma burned through. "One down," she muttered, not stopping to admire her handiwork. She spun to face the second alien, who had already begun to recover. It leaped toward her, moving faster than she anticipated. Lena barely had time to react, raising her rifle just in time to block the blow. The force knocked her back, but she stayed on her feet, gritting her teeth against the pain. The alien lunged again, its claws gleaming. This time, she sidestepped, ducking low as it overextended. With a swift upward swing, she slammed her rifle butt into its exposed jaw. The crack of bone echoed through the arena. The creature stumbled, and before it could regain its balance, Lena fired point-blank into its skull. The alien crumpled to the ground in a lifeless heap. 2 down. 1 to go. Lena turned toward the last enemy, the leader, the one Vox had warned her about. He stood at the far end of the arena, his eyes narrowed, watching her with deadly focus. He hadn't moved during the fight. He didn't need to. This one was different, more dangerous. Lena could feel the weight of his presence, the calm confidence of a warrior who had no doubt of his victory. "You fought well, human," the alien finally spoke, his voice a low growl that reverberated through the arena. "But this is where your story ends." Lena didn't respond. Her mind raced, calculating every possible outcome. She was injured, exhausted, and low on ammunition. The odds were stacked against her in every conceivable way. But giving up wasn't in her nature. The alien warrior advanced slowly, every step measured, his gaze never leaving her. His armor gleamed under the arena's harsh lights, a contrast to Lena's bloodied and battle-worn appearance. He was built for this, the perfect killing machine. And he knew it. As he approached, Lena shifted her stance, feigning weakness, letting her exhaustion show just enough to bait him. She needed him to underestimate her. Just for a second. "Final advice?" she whispered, voice barely audible. "None of your current weapons will penetrate his shield," Box warned, his voice tense for the first time. Lena's lips twitched into a humorless smile. "Then we'll improvise." The alien lunged, faster than her eyes could track. Lena threw herself to the side, barely avoiding the strike. She rolled, coming up just in time to fire her last remaining shot directly at the alien's shield. The plasma bolt fizzled harmlessly against it, just as Vox had predicted. But Lena hadn't been aiming to kill. The plasma shot ricocheted off the shield, striking a fuel cell in the wreckage nearby. The resulting explosion rocked the arena, a massive fireball engulfing the space between them. The alien staggered, momentarily disoriented. Lena didn't waste the opportunity. She charged, knife in hand, and with a final, desperate push, drove the blade into the small gap between the alien's armor plates, just beneath the arm. The warrior let out a guttural scream, and for the first time, Lena saw fear in its eyes. She twisted the knife and pulled it free, watching as the alien fell to its knees, the light fading from its gaze. 3 down, she whispered, breathing heavily. The arena was silent now, but Lena knew this victory was only the beginning. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood and smoke, but Lena stood tall, her gaze fixed on the arena's far wall. Beyond it, the distant sounds of war rumbled, a reminder that while she had won this round, the greater conflict was still raging. She couldn't dwell on the past victories. Not when the real threat lay just ahead. Vox, now silent, had been recalculating. His usual precision in tactics was impressive, but Lena felt his hesitation. Something had shifted, and she needed to know what. The victory had been costly. She was running on fumes, her body a mass of aches and adrenaline. Yet the sense of looming danger, heavier than before, made her spine stiffen. "Report," Lena demanded, still eyeing the arena's exit. Her voice held a weariness she didn't bother to mask. "There's a disruption in the enemy's frequency," Vox responded, his tone clipped. "I can't determine the source, but I'm detecting movement, massive movement, just outside the walls. Reinforcements, likely." Reinforcements? Of course, they wouldn't send just a handful of warriors to die. They'd unleash a flood. The aliens were done playing by the rules. Lena clenched her jaw, her mind racing through possibilities. The arena had been a trap, a test to see how far she could be pushed. Now, they were getting ready to crush her entirely. "How long do we have?" she asked, already adjusting her grip on the rifle. "Minutes. They're converging at multiple points. Whatever's coming, it's not just soldiers." Lena's heart quickened. Not just soldiers? That left a dozen horrifying possibilities. She had to act before she was boxed in. She turned sharply, eyes narrowing as she scanned her surroundings for any possible escape. The arena, designed to entrap, offered no obvious exit. The towering walls, the alien corpses littering the ground, all of it reminded her of how tightly this trap had been set. Still, there was always a way out. "Options," she muttered, hoping Vox had seen something she hadn't. "There's an energy spike beneath the arena," Vox said, his synthetic voice lowering. "It could be a power source for the force fields. If we can disrupt it, the entire arena's systems might collapse." Lena didn't hesitate. "Where?" 15 meters north of your position. Look for a hatch, likely hidden beneath the debris." Without another word, Lena moved. Her steps were heavy, the ache in her side a constant reminder of her condition, but she pushed forward. Every second counted. She navigated the wreckage, the crumbling walls and broken pieces of alien armor, making the ground uneven and treacherous. Her breath came in shallow gasps, but her resolve remained unshaken. As she neared the designated location, her eyes caught sight of a faint glow beneath the debris. A surge of determination shot through her. This had to be it. Dropping to her knees, she began clearing away the rubble, her fingers brushing against a cold metal plate. "There," Vox confirmed, as she uncovered the small access hatch. "You need to manually overload the power grid. I'll guide you." Lena pried open the hatch, revealing a cluster of alien technology that looked more like a living organism than a machine. The circuitry pulsed faintly, veins of light running through the wires. Sweat dripped down her face as she reached in, careful not to disrupt anything too quickly. "Careful, Captain. One wrong move, and you'll trigger a security lockdown. Don't remind me," she muttered under her breath, her fingers working swiftly. The technology was unlike anything she'd encountered before, but she trusted Vox's guidance. As her hands moved with precision, she felt the humming of the system growing louder, vibrating through her body. 5% more power, and the overload will initiate, Vox instructed. Brace yourself for the energy backlash. Lena didn't reply. Her focus was entirely on the task. She felt the tension in the air thickening, a palpable energy building as the overload neared completion. With a final twist, she completed the circuit, sending a surge of energy through the system. The response was immediate. A high-pitched whine filled the arena as the lights flickered and the force field surrounding the walls sputtered. Then, with a deafening crack, the entire system collapsed. The walls shimmered before disintegrating, leaving nothing but open space and a path to freedom. But Lena had no time to savor the moment. The ground beneath her trembled, and the distant rumble of approaching forces grew louder. She glanced at the horizon and saw the unmistakable forms of alien machines, towering behemoths marching in unison toward her. Vox, what are we looking at? She asked, her voice tight. Mechs. Combat grade. Heavily armored. We need to move, Captain. Lena's heart sank. She'd fought against these machines before, and she knew just how devastating they could be. But running wasn't an option. Not now. Weapons check, she ordered, her hands instinctively reaching for her plasma rifle. It had only a few charges left. Not nearly enough. You're severely under-equipped for this battle, Vox replied bluntly. However, there's an outpost not far from here, enemy-controlled but lightly guarded. If we make it there, we might find reinforcements or at least some heavy firepower. Lena's gaze fixed on the advancing machines. They were still several minutes out, but their sheer size and numbers made them a terrifying sight. Her mind raced, calculating the odds. We make for the outpost, she decided, tightening her grip on the rifle. If they catch up, we won't have a chance. She turned, heading toward the distant structure, her pace quickening despite her exhaustion. Each step felt heavier, but Lena knew there was no room for failure. The Mechs were coming, and with them, the next battle. This wasn't over. Far from it. The rising tension gnawed at her. Behind her, the machines thundered closer, and the faint outline of the outpost loomed ahead. The real fight was about to begin.